Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. That time of week again, everybody's favorite segment on YouTube, the MLB Power Rankings. Guys, I'm going to go through all 30 teams. I'm pretty excited. This is going to be my second last makeshift video because we are going to finally, after what feels like 2.5 months, get back into our own house after the emergency renos, I guess you can call it, and I'm going to be back in my studio, so I'm super excited for that. And with that, I'm hoping to maybe bring some more content because basically I've been just doing the power rankings every week, and that was a big part of why. And yeah, super excited about that. So if you are new, subscribe to the channel. We crossed over 1,500. I'm not going to do the whole spiel because I got to run through 30 teams here relatively quickly today. Number 30, the Colorado Rockies. Their game is still going on against the Yankees right now. I think it's in the 8th. The Yankees are up by 1. You expect the Yankees to win, but I could pretty much eat my hat and my words on that one. But they're 1-2 against the Yankees, 0-4 against Philly this week. The win against the Yankees, I guess, came as a big surprise for most people. Vegas obviously had the Yankees as a big favorite. It's the first win of the week, and finally another win for the Rockies, but they are still on pace for pretty much the worst record of all time. Number 29. I have the no-name Athletics, and that is a pretty mega drop down for this team. They had an 11-game losing streak before they finally picked up a win today, and the Athletics pretty much fell a lot. They went 1-6 this week. They did pick up the one-run win today against Philadelphia, so a 2-1 series there. They got swept earlier in the week by their arch nemesis Angels, a team that they were battling for bottom row supremacy pretty much coming into this week. So Athletics, pretty big fall, and honestly, after a little bit of excitement, it feels like this happens with Athletics, much like it does with Pittsburgh every year. You get a little bit excited, but then the wheels have pretty much come off this team. This team has given up a lot of runs, and they're not doing well at home. Take a look at their home record, and I think you will be surprised that they probably have one of the worst win percentages at home in the MLB, barring the Rockies, of course. Next up, moving up one spot after a winning week, the Pittsburgh Pirates win both series against their division Cincinnati Reds, Milwaukee Brewers, winning both games 2-1, edging out the Brewers in both games by 1 run. It's a team that still doesn't seem to be getting much offense going, but the pitching has at least been helping them pick up a couple of wins. I wasn't going to get too far ahead of myself. A winning week for the Pirates often means getting swept next week, so I'm not ready to really move them up. There is some teams that they potentially have the ability to cross over, but I think the Pirates are pretty much going to be bottom dwellers all season long. Next up, a lot of people gave me hate saying I had them a little too high last week, and maybe I did, and maybe I listened to you guys a little bit, but they did have a 500 week this week, going 1-2 against Seattle and winning a series again this week against the Texas Rangers. I think more so than not, it was me feeling a little bit better against the teams that I did move past them. At the end of the day, I don't think the White Sox are nearly as bad, obviously, as last year or these three teams, but I don't think people are giving them maybe enough credit. They are only minus 50 run differential. I know minus 50 is still a lot, but when you start comparing them against the bottom 10 teams, it's not too much. They do tend to be in games longer, and the bullpen isn't as atrocious as we've seen in the past. Maybe the White Sox have a little bit going for them. They did have their new City Connect jerseys popped up a couple of weeks ago. Next up, 26, moving a couple of spots off, and they won a series with this week against a division rival Boston Red Sox. This series winning over the weekend 2-1. I do believe they had one rain out. I guess they never made it up, or maybe I'm missing one of the games. I thought they had a 4-game set with Boston. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. Either way, they pick up 2 wins against Boston. I can definitely say that. And Orioles, seeing a lot of changes going on. They're just never really meeting up to expectations this year. There's been some debate in our Discord whether they're the worst team in the American League. As you can see, I don't think so. But by far the worst team in the division at this point, and a lot worse than their playoff aspirations coming into the season. Next up, controversial pick last week, the Los Angeles Angels. I made a correction in my video last week. They swept the Dodgers. At the end of the day, maybe I should have moved them up a few spots last week, but I still think the Angels are a bottom row team. This week, not they had a winning week going 5-2. 4 of the wins coming against the Athletics, who are pretty much dismantled because of it. And then they lost a series to the Miami Marlins. We've seen times this season, it's been only 2 months now, but the Angels have had streaks where they go on little bit runs. We had that winning streak that everyone pointed out last week. We had a pretty good run over the first couple of weeks in the season. But when it comes down to it, guys, some of these wins that I've seen them come from behind and win don't seem very sustainable. I don't see them being sustainable in this division. I don't see them being sustainable across the conference. And at the end of the day, I don't look at the record. If I was just looking at records, I would just print the standings. I would post them here, and I'd be like, what kind of video is that? But at the end of the day, this is kind of where I see the Angels. Do they have room to progress up a little more? Yes. Of course, some people are going to argue they're probably better than the next couple of teams, but I digress by going on. Number 24. I have the Washington Nationals, and the thing I guess I'll point out to me, and maybe it's not right, maybe someone that knows more about the Angels farm system can talk to that. Washington Nationals, to me, they're younger guys, they're up-and-coming guys. They seem like a team that is on more of a trajectory for a long-term sustainability, and that's kind of what I'm looking for a lot more, maybe later in the season in this bottom row, but especially the progress we've seen out of the Nationals is something to be excited about. 1-2 against San Fran over the weekend. San Fran's a top-tier team, not going to hold too much. 2-0 against Atlanta. I think the middle game of that series got rained down, and I guess they didn't make it up. Looked like they had an off day, so I wasn't sure what happened there exactly. But Nationals seem to be doing all right. And some of these young guys, especially against that Washington or against Atlanta early in the week, delivering. We saw Ruiz have an awesome moment with his first time seeing his family come to town. I loved seeing that. Number 23, I think the same spot as last week. Not exactly the kind of week Brewers fans are excited about. Winning the series against Baltimore earlier in the week. A little bit dicey. They went to extras and did lose the last game of the series, looked for the sweep, but then they lose to the Pirates. And guys, if you're going to make some progress in the Central, you got to beat the Pirates right now. That seems to be the recipe. Brewers didn't get done. Sure, all the games were close, one-run games, but they avoided the sweep today, so at least they did have that going for them. At the end of the day, there is some concerns. This Brewers team is a small market team. They don't often become the big spenders. There's always been a team that's kind of generated themselves into competition for the last 5, 6, 7 years, however long it's been. It seems like right now they're a little bit farther back in the division than they would like. I think they have the potential to move up, but right now that's kind of where they are. Number 22, maybe peaking on my board here. Might be over-exaggerating a little bit because if you look deeper at the numbers, like run differential specifically, it's not pretty. But at the end of the day, I kind of like how close the Marlins kind of keep games against, especially the top teams. They always seem to steal one. Not a lot of sweepability against the Marlins. I do like that. 1-3 though to start 1-2, sorry, against the Cubs. Overall, both series the past 2 weeks against the Cubs were 1-2. Didn't get swept. A little bit of credit there. They go up against the Angels this weekend, a team that is relatively hot, especially in the bottom 2 rows, and they win that series, so I'll give a little bit of credit for that. And the Marlins are no easy out, and I do kind of like what they are capable of. They do have some up-and-coming talent as well. Number 21, I think what the best record so far on the board that we're talking about, but when it comes down to it, ugly week for the Reds. They went 1-2 against the Pirates, 1-2 against the Cubs over the weekend, so they also lose both series. And in an interesting turn of events, the NL Central seems to be the weakest team division in the National League. Surprise, surprise. But again, we saw this week the Reds lose another 1-0 game. I think someone in my Discord said it was the 5th 1-0 game they've been a part of, and they've only won one of them. Probably misquoting that, sorry, Tommy. But yeah, Reds seem to just have no consistency, can't string together the wins where it matters, and I am not confident in that team right now. Next up, dropping heavily on the board, the Texas Rangers. Don't know what to say. This team just can't figure it out, and they've been falling, and they're kind of back now in the same boat as last year. The only difference is that you would expect them to be doing better than last year based on the players that are there this year. 0-3 against the Yankees, getting swept. 1-2 against the White Sox. I think if this keeps up, the we kind of have to forget about the okay moments that we saw the Rangers have this season, and they are on their way possibly down in the bottom row. I think there'll be people out there arguing that the Angels are technically better right now, especially in the standings-wise, but I would hope in a best of 7, sending out Eovaldi, sending out DeGrom, that these guys are going to be better overall. Number 19, we have Boston, who just continues to not win, especially in their division. So we talked about it in Baltimore. I wasn't sure if it was a 4-game series. I have it down as they won 1, lost 2, but I thought it was a 4-game series, so I might be forgetting a game. Again, forget that. But Boston has been so unpredictable because in their division, they lose to the Jays. They lose to Baltimore now. I know they beat them earlier. But then they start this week off with a great series against who I had at number 1, the New York Mets, and they win that. So it's just like they're floating around 500. They're always going to be in it, and they're going to be in the hunt for a wild card. But to start moving up this board, it starts to get really thick in these next 2 rows. You got to have some sort of win streak. Number 18, speaking of win streaks, the Blue Jays are not on one after starting the week sweeping the Padres in an unlikely fashion, I might add, with some come from behind, some errors by the Padres to make that happen. They follow it up with a dud of a series against Tampa, which is capped by an 11-0 loss today. They lost all 3 over the weekend for a 500 week. Moving up a couple of spots, but I don't feel great about it. It was more because the rest of the teams below them did not do great at all, and the edge being over Boston right now because they have won the series, but I don't feel confident about it, honestly. Blue Jays just have not, in my opinion, performed up to expectations. Some days the pitching looks good and the bats are awful. Some days the bats look all right and the pitching is the downside. So Jays, I don't know what's going on really. Every time I move them, they seem to do the opposite. So I'm kind of keeping them right there for now. Number 17, even though the Jays did beat this team has been at least a little bit hotter as of late. Getting Acuna back this week, already hit 2 home runs, maybe 3 if I missed one today. 1-2 against San Diego, 0-2 against Washington. So it has not helped them too much this week, dropping them a few spots. I don't know how it's going to work out for Atlanta because the rest of this division is not as bad as it used to be the bottom half, and the top half seems to be super strong, with the Mets being stronger than what they have been in the past. So Atlanta with the slow start might be too far back. Number 16. Arizona seems to just not have what it takes to get in this playoff race. We might see a similar situation to last year where they just missed out on the playoffs by a game. 1-2 against the Dodgers, 0-3 against St. Louis. And that really knocked them down on this board to me because St. Louis is one of those teams that is unexpectedly doing very well, at least unexpectedly to me, but now I'm starting to come around on them. And it's a team Arizona is going to have to compete against to get to the playoffs. St. Louis probably not on the way to the division. Arizona probably not on the way to the division. So these are games that are going to become meaningful when it comes to wild card situation. Getting swept there, not good look for Arizona. And right now the runs are just getting poured on against Arizona. Number 15, Kansas City, kind of sitting smack dab in the middle. 2-1 against San Fran, 1-2 over the weekend against Minnesota. So 500 week, right there in the middle. It's been kind of ups and down all over the place for the Royals, and at the end of the day, the AL Central is super strong. So for right now, they have 3 teams that they are working on hopping, so it's a big uphill climb for the Royals. They are going to have to sort something out. I don't really see them falling too much down the board at the end of the day because when they're playing outside of their division, they're going to be doing relatively well. But they're going to have a lot of games in their division against top tier talent. So the Royals maybe on their way to 500, slightly above 500 season, which kind of speaks to why they're number 15. Number 14, Tampa Bay Rays moving up a few spots, and they're just sticking around. They just hit 500 today. They had a 5-1 week. Sweeping Toronto, talked about that. 2-1 against Houston. So that was a little bit of a surprise when I was going through. I don't really remember those games sticking out to me during the week. Of course, I'm a much guy. I can't watch all 30 teams every single night. So at the end of the week, some of these things sometimes come as a little bit of surprise. But on top of that, they lose to Miami the week before. So it's kind of like, what's going on with Tampa Bay? But the offense really piled it on today. And as of now, they're still playing in Steinbrenner Stadium. So that's something there. Number 13, the Padres dropping even more spots this week. They just seem to have gotten a little bit cold, and kind of stemmed in that Toronto series, getting swept. I kind of saw it a little bit more closely playing against Toronto, of course. And infield errors were just the story of that series. Gavin Sheets had a good series. Maybe the bats aren't quite going. The bullpen did not do nearly as well as what I had expected. I know they have been having a much better tier bullpen so far this year. Just kind of cooled off. They're around 560 win percentage. Maybe this is probably the bottom. Maybe they'll turn it around, but they do have that tough division as well is working against them. And right now, some other teams are a little bit hotter, like number 12. Moving up a few spots here, Minnesota goes on and continues to have a winning week in their division after that winning streak that we talked about last week. So 1-1 against Cleveland. Would have loved to see them play the third match, just kind of give a little bit of an edge there. Right now, as you can see, I gave it to Cleveland. But coming in, beating Kansas City over the weekend kind of cements themselves, in my opinion, at least third in this division. Top 12 means fighting for that playoff spot very well, very closely, and Minnesota has put themselves back into that conversation. Number 11, we have the Seattle Mariners, and Seattle kind of cooled off, and it's got to be a little bit worrisome with how the season has gone, having a little bit of remnants of last year, how they got out so far ahead and it fell apart, and this season they got ahead and then they lose the series over the weekend to Houston 3-1. On top of that, Seattle barely squeaks out a series win against the White Sox. The offense seems to be cooling off, and the pitching isn't quite holding them to what you would kind of hoping. Seattle seems a lot of inconsistency going on. Not a lot of losing streaks, not a lot of winning streaks, but right now they are holding on to playoff aspirations, so that at least is a positive. Number 10, moving up a few spots, keeping them a little bit ahead now of Minnesota. I think a lot of it has to do with they beat Detroit 3-1 this weekend. They had a pretty cool month. Like, it wasn't a great month for them. Subpar, I would say, for most people, but they have kind of turned it around this week. 1-1 against Minnesota, 3-1 against Detroit. If it wasn't for Skubal, they very well could have went for the 4-game sweep, but Skubal at least shut the door on them today and shut that door down. But aspiration-wise, the Cleveland Guardians are moving on up. Number 9, the American League seems to be infiltrating a little bit into the top 12. If you have watched my videos the past few weeks, it was pretty heavily National League, but we have seen a few of them start to drop out of the top 2 rows, and Houston kind of maintains it. 1-2 against Tampa, a little bit going on there as well, but the bounce back against Seattle, 3-1, I think is kind of massive, and right now puts me in the favorite for Houston to win this division based on that. Number 8, peaking right now, we got the St. Louis Cardinals, and I gotta admit, color me super surprised. This team has been great offensively, super surprising that they've been able to put up the kind of runs they are. Pitching wise, I don't know if I'd be super surprised. Some of these guys have been in the majors for a while, and we have seen flashes of greatness from a lot of them. So that part doesn't surprise me, but it's all coming together with some of the young guys as well, delivering. Cardinals start the week off, they play in Detroit. It was a hard-fought series, and it was a very fun series to watch, and they lose that one 2-1. That's all right. They bounce back with a massive series win. We talked about it when we were talking about Arizona. Just a super impactful win in what's coming into a close race in this National League Central between them and the Cubs, as well as what's going to be a tight wild card race down the stretch against teams like this. Number 7, the Giants. Right now, I do have the Giants as a slight edge favorite over the Cardinals, but it's closing. And this week, if it's the kind of week that the Giants keep having, it's a 500 week. 1-2 against the Royals, 2-1 against the Nationals. Nothing super outrageous for the Giants. They kind of just keep the status quo going. Nothing to really boast them into the top row for me, and nothing really to consider dropping them down at this point. Number 6, dropping a few spots, and I guess it's mostly because just not. I think it's just mostly that the other team that was at number 6 just didn't do as well, or did that much more than that. Cubs overall 2-1 against Miami, 2-1 against Cincinnati. So like, they beat the 2 teams in the bottom row. I really probably shouldn't hold too much against them. I think the consistency is there for the Cubs. The offense has been there. I guess this is more predictability for me, whether they can keep it up in the long haul. At number 5, same spot as last week. I took a lot of heat for this, being told I do not like the American League Central. The Tigers are blah, 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 and I'm a Yankees fan. That was fun. That's always funny to hear. But I still think the Tigers are a top 5 team. I know at the end of the day, in the standings, we're talking about a team that has the highest standing. We're talking about a team that has a run differential that's right up there amongst the best in the league. Skubal goes out there, closes the door so the team doesn't get swept. That's going to happen. This team is not going to put together long stretches of losses. I get all that. This is a team that has been probably the best record since last year. A couple months left in the season. But at the same time, I still try to match these teams up against each other. What do I think is going to happen? Rightfully so, it's pointed out to me that they beat the Yankees early on the season. It is what it is. This is kind of how I am looking at it right now. But the Detroit Tigers, 1-3 against Cleveland, kind of to me cemented my thoughts on them. They are susceptible. We've seen it the past 2 weeks. Last week against Toronto and Boston, the games were wild. They gave up a lot of runs, but they squeaked out. The offense really bailed them out. And in that series, like against Cleveland, where the offense can get shut down by good pitching, I think that's where Detroit is going to struggle, and we saw it this week. And I think that's what's going to happen when they start playing a lot of the top-tier teams. We saw it earlier in the season as well. Number 4, they are playing the Dodgers right now on the Sunday Nighter. Of course, I always film this before that. So 1-1 so far against the Dodgers, 1-2 against Boston. So a down week for the Mets, a couple of games down. I think they fell below 600, and they have fallen from the first spot. And based on that, you can always see what. It's a rubber match tonight between them and the Dodgers, so you can kind of predict. I'm going ahead. This is kind of how I do things. I predict that the Dodgers are going to win tonight. Something a little fun there. But I do have the Dodgers at number 3, 2-1 against Arizona earlier in the week. They're still managing to put together wins. The offense is no concern whatsoever. It's always been the pitching, and so far, they've kind of maintained it. They're maintaining that 600. The Giants, I believe, are only 1.5, maybe 2.5 games behind. So the division is nowhere near a lock for the Dodgers as it is for, let's say, number 2 on this board, the New York Yankees. I keep them in the same spot. 2-1 against the Rockies, I think, if the game didn't turn crazy at the end there. And sweeping Texas earlier in the week. Run differential, best in the American League. Aaron Judge batting .400. We're seeing Goldschmidt bat .350. They have Max Fried. Rodon is pitching amazing. In a best of 5, best of 7, I think the Yankees are by far the strongest team in the American League. I think it's going to come down to experience as well in the postseason. That is going to play a factor in the long run. On top of that, they, in my opinion, are going to walk away with this division. They're now 5 games up on the division, and I think this is only going to start to grow as they start playing more in their division. So that play is playing a part at number 2. And at number 1, I think jumping most of these guys, we have the Philadelphia Phillies, who did lose the Athletics today after putting together 9 straight wins, 4 against Colorado this week. So if we kind of look at who they were beating over those 9, I know there's the Athletics, I'm pretty sure it's the Marlins and Colorado, and there was someone else. Well, it might have been Pittsburgh. Yeah, with the matchup last week when they had the Rivals weekend. So 9 wins in a row. Maybe not the best 9 wins in a row. We saw Minnesota put together the same kind of win streak. But for me, Philadelphia has been a team that has been number 1 at least once this year. They've been number 1 a couple times last year. It's a lot of the same guys. This is a very strong roster. They have a farm team that is also performing very well in the minors and AAA. So like those things all coming together, I think Philadelphia is setting themselves up for a long push, a good push in this season. Atlanta stumbling a little bit, the Mets stumbling a little bit, and Philly is trying to take advantage with their win streak. So there you guys have it. Top 30 teams in the MLB. There is no 31. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below as always, and I will see you guys next time.